What makes someone a balanced leader? Hey there, this is your friend and guide, Caroline. On today's Balanced Leader, my incredible guest and I share strategies to help you lead with confidence, stay resilient, and avoid burnout. This isn't just about leadership, it's about thriving holistically in mind, body, and spirit. Ready to recalibrate? Well, let's dive in and create the balanced life you deserve.
On this episode of today's Balanced Leader, we're going to dive into the transformative world of adaptive leadership, a must listen for anyone who's felt the pressures of leading through uncertainty and change. We are going to explore how true leaders adapt not just their strategies, but their entire mindset to thrive when challenges arise. Discover practical insights and powerful stories that reveal how to embrace flexibility, empower your teams, and stay resilient in the face of evolving circumstances. Tune in and learn how to lead with agility, clarity, and unshakable confidence. Are you ready to step into the next level of your leadership journey? Then let's get going. Hey there, it's Caroline. I think you're going to be really intrigued by this episode. But before we dive in, let me ask you something first. Have you ever felt like the world is moving so fast that even just keeping up feels like a win? Maybe you've found yourself thinking, am I leading this team or am I just reacting to whatever comes next? If that sounds familiar, you're in the right place, because today we're exploring one of the most essential leadership approaches in today's fast-paced world: adaptive leadership. We'll take an in-depth look at what adaptive leadership truly means, why it's critical for your sustained success, and when to apply it. Plus, we'll see how top leaders and companies have mastered it. I'm going to share stories from leaders similar to the one we've heard about before, Nadella. We're going to hear about Reed Hastings and Shantanu Marian. And I'm going to provide you tangible, step-by-step practices that you can apply immediately. So let's get started. Let's cut through all the noise. In this fast-paced, high-stakes world, the leaders who thrive are the ones with all the answers. They're the ones that are flexible, curious, and willing to learn as they go. This episode is going to be about giving you the tools and the mindset to become that leader. Are you ready? Let's jump in. So let me ask you first, have you ever heard of adaptive leadership? Maybe it's something you're practicing right now and you don't even realize it. Or maybe it's been on your radar, but it just feels like another trendy concept. Well, today I want to peel back the layers of adaptive leadership. Not because it's all the rage, but because it's essential, especially in this fast-paced, ever-changing and increasingly demanding world. I chose this topic because as leaders, we're often caught between knowing what's worked in the past and then figuring out how to navigate uncharted territory. Well, adaptive leadership isn't just another theory. It truly is a framework that helps you face complex challenges head-on, pivot gracefully, and lead your team through change with confidence and agility. So in this episode, we'll 1, dig into why this approach matters, 2, explore real-world examples of leaders who've mastered this, and 3, outline actionable ways you can bring adaptive practices into your own leadership journey. Because as always, I want to help you think differently. Find what works for you, and give you tools so that you can integrate it into your daily life. And then see how we can transform the way you lead. So what is adaptive leadership? Well, it's a concept developed by Ronald Heifetz and Marty Linsky back in the 1990s. And it emerged from their observations or research at Harvard University, where they noticed a significant gap in traditional leadership models. They saw that while many leaders were effective at addressing technical problems, those are issues that have clear solutions and can be solved with existing expertise. They saw that people often struggled with more complex, ambiguous challenges. These are the challenges that require new ways of thinking, learning, and adapting, rather than simply using applying the tried and true solutions. So Heifetz and Walensky developed this concept to address the problem leaders were facing, adaptive challenges. They noticed problems that were a result of shifting environments, which we have, new market demands, technological disruptions, or even cultural transformations. These challenges required not only expertise, but the ability to navigate uncertainty, to mobilize your teams to think differently, and then to embrace that continuous change, because it can be exciting, right? Adaptive leadership was created to help leaders move beyond basic problem solving and empower them to guide their organizations and teams to adapt and thrive in the face of evolving, unpredicted challenges. It was about tackling challenges that cannot be solved with those pre-existing expertise or straightforward approach. It's a practice that goes beyond basic problem solving. And truly, it's about mobilizing people to address complex problems and thrive in that face of change. So now that we understand what adaptive leadership is, let's look at a detailed breakdown using the 5 Ws. What is adaptive leadership? Well, we know that adaptive leadership is a framework that emphasizes the ability for people to be able to pivot, learn, and innovate in response to complex challenges do require new thinking. It's not just about making decisions. It's about enabling your team to navigate the unknown. But why is that important? Well, in a time that is defined by rapid change, companies that rely solely on technical solutions fall behind. And we're going to talk about some of those. Adaptive leadership allows leaders to be flexible, to be resilient, enabling to guide their teams through uncertainty and come out even stronger. So how do you know when to use it? Well, adaptive leadership is most effective when you're facing challenges that don't have clear solutions, like disruptions such as market shifts, when encountering new technology, or maybe even during times of cultural transformations. Does this all make sense, but you're not sure where adaptive leadership could be applied? Well, adaptive leadership is most effectively applied in areas where conventional, well-known methods fall short and where you need to be innovative. You need to have agile thinking. You know me, I love examples. So let me give you some key contexts in which adaptive leadership can make a significant impact. One, it can make an impact in strategic decision-making, because it plays a crucial role in guiding that strategic decision, especially in volatile industries where market trends can change rapidly. Sound like you may need this now? Well, when leaders face uncertainties, such as shifting consumer behaviors or maybe new competitors entering the market, or maybe there's even a global economic shift, traditional approaches that you've relied on in the past and have been successful for you are now beginning to fail. And as an adaptive leader, you want to assess current emerging data. You want to involve diverse perspectives. And then you want to be able to pivot your strategies as needed to stay ahead. Let me give you an example of a company. During the pandemic, companies like Zoom adapted their strategic decisions swiftly to meet an unprecedented surge in demand, which reshaped their services and infrastructure in real time. Two, You may use this in team management. Adaptive leadership shines when managing diverse teams with varied expectations, cultures, and experiences. And this can be a challenge for many leaders. It's particularly effective when leading cross-functional teams tasked with an upcoming innovation or problem solving. Because adaptive leaders encourage open communication, value feedback from all team members regardless of hierarchy, and listen to the feedback or counter arguments, and then build an environment where adaptability is celebrated. So, for instance, when leaders face resistance to change during a major organizational shift, right? Many of us have been through that. You can apply adaptive leadership to address concerns, adjust your own communication style, and truly understand what your team needs based on what drives them, and then guide teams through uncertainty. Because when they don't have that fear of uncertainty, you get more innovation, more work, more ideas from them, right? More commitment. Okay, so 3, another place you may use adaptive leadership is when projects pivot. Ever have a project pivot? Well, we know that projects often encounter unexpected obstacles. Maybe it's new regulations that come out. Maybe all of a sudden there's some budget cut, or there's shift in the stakeholder priorities. Adaptive leadership equips project managers and leaders to approach these changes with a flexible mindset. So rather than sticking rigidly to an original plan, adaptive leaders reassess what the project's goals are and then quickly reallocate the resources and keep the team aligned and inspired with these new objectives. Consider how tech companies pivot mid-project to incorporate some emerging technology or respond to a competitor's advances. Let's look at Tesla. They have adapted their product development timelines based on breakthroughs in battery technology and environmental policies, keeping their projects aligned with evolving market conditions. Does that make sense? Okay, number 4. Another big way to use adaptive leadership is in crisis management. During crisis, whether it's because of an economic downturn, whether it's due to a public relations issues, or because of global disruptions, adaptive leadership is critical. The traditional crisis management might rely on predefined steps and existing frameworks. But when you use adaptive leadership, leaders are able to think on their feet, pivot when they need to, maybe adjust tactics as situations unfold. And then that empowers their teams to contribute to solutions. Companies that survived and even thrived during the 2008 financial crisis or even the COVID pandemic often did so because their leaders were able to adapt, innovate, and lead with resilience. It was truly crisis management at its finest. And it was something leaders had never experienced in their lifetime, right? Okay, number 5, cultural and organizational transformations. Adaptive leadership can be used in cultural and organizational transformation. Many companies are dealing with large-scale changes such as mergers, acquisitions, or even shifts in company culture because of change in the leadership or the stakeholders. These situations can often involve complex human elements, such as navigating differing team dynamics, or maybe you have to align various departments to meet that new vision. Adaptive leaders use their skills to build trust, to create buy-in, and to align the team's efforts towards a shared goal. So think of a leader you know who has been adaptive, and then think of one that hasn't. What has that outcome been? In fact, if you look at Stan Nadella's leadership at Microsoft, and yes, we talked about him before, because he's a great example of adaptive leadership. He used adaptive leadership to shift the entire company culture from a competitive, know it all market mindset to a collaborative, learn it all approach, fostering greater innovation and teamwork. They started to listen, they started to brainstorm together, they started to work through kinks before the product went out to consumers. That way, they were able to limit the amount of challenges they had when it did hit the shelf because they already looked at what consumers were saying, those consumers being their own employees. And sixth, final step is you'll see adaptive leadership in innovation and new product development. Because an industry is driven by rapid innovation. Look at the tech industry. Adaptive leadership is essential for nurturing creativity and maintaining that competitive edge. How humans? Well, leaders must be comfortable with ambiguity, the ability and willingness to pivot when new information arises, and being capable of inspiring their teams to explore uncharted territory using friendly persuasion. So companies like Apple have harnessed adaptive leadership to stay at the forefront of technology, allowing teams to experiment, fail, and try again, all with the vision to bring groundbreaking products to the market. So you can already see how adaptive leadership isn't limited to a single domain. It truly is applied wherever challenges lack a clear step-by-step solution that was performed in the past and now demands creativity, flexibility, people-focused leadership. Okay, we've looked at adaptive leadership from strategic decisions and team management to crisis response and cultural shifts, and can see how this form of leadership equips leaders with the ability to navigate like complex situations effectively. So if you're wondering who benefits from it, well, everyone in the organization benefits. Teams become more engaged and empowered. And leaders build trust and credibility by showing that they are agile and are there for the success of the business and their teams. So I've pulled some examples of adaptive leadership in action for you. And feel free to research these further, as there are some incredible leaders out there. And to be honest, who better to surround you with than leaders that have been able to do this, that are in the forefront of creating some really cool stuff? So let's start with the gentleman we've already talked about before, Satya Nadella. He's the CEO of Microsoft. When Nadella took over as CEO of Microsoft in 2014, the company was known for its competitive, narrow-minded culture. And that stifled collaboration and then innovation. Nadella came in and recognized that the challenge that Microsoft faced was being adaptive. It's not all about just being strong technically. They needed a culture overhaul to be able to pivot from a focus on internal competition amongst each other to a growth and learning mindset. So what did he do? Well, one, he promoted a growth mindset. Nadella introduced the concept of growth mindset. He openly encouraged employees to learn from their mistakes and to share that knowledge. I mean, words are one thing, and everybody can say they do that. But how can we make this come to life? Well, through integration, right? So start by embedding this idea in your team, in your organization, through workshops focused on learning from failures. Remember to complete your review of what happened and why. But some of the best ideas come from making mistakes. Two, Nadella opened the lines of communication. He shifted from a top-down communication to open forums where ideas could flow freely. A great way to do this is to hold a monthly open mic session where employees can present their ideas or voice their concerns without fear of judgment. Because remember, your employees are also your customers. So they're probably going to be speaking from a gap that they encounter. Three, the next thing he did was invest in collaboration tools. In fact, Microsoft Teams was promoted as a collaboration to break down silos and improve teamwork across departments, right? Had a problem, used adaptive leadership, created a product that so many of us use today. Overall, Microsoft, through Nadella's leadership, made a shift to revitalize that culture, to transform its business approach. And all that led to the successful launch of products, turning the company into a leader in cloud services and artificial intelligence. I mean, AI is out there. Use it. Leverage it. Still don't know how you can integrate this in your own job or your own company? Adopt a simple practice called the Growth Reflection Hour. Create a weekly 30-minute session where team members share a challenge they faced and how they tackled it. And then what did they learn from it? It will start to have your team move in a different thought process in the future, where it isn't a one and done, but where we grow and learn from what we've done. Now let's talk about the journey of Netflix. Let me set the stage. Netflix, under Reed Hastings, is a compelling testament to the power of adaptive leadership, particularly during periods of technological and market shift. In the late 1990s, Netflix was a DVD rental service that delivered movies directly to customers' homes through the mail. At that time, the company was competing with a brick-and-mortar giant, yes, you remember them, Blockbuster, which dominated the home entertainment market with thousands of physical locations nationwide. Blockbuster's model was deeply entrenched, thriving on late fees and in-store rentals that generated significant revenue. However, he still saw the writing on the wall. The late 90s and early 2000s were marked by significant technological advancements and the rise of the internet as a consumer tool. And things were moving super quickly, right? Broadband internet was becoming more accessible, and the concept of digital media was slowly gaining ground. Hastings recognized that technological innovation had the potential to disrupt traditional models, including DVD rental business. Well, what did he see coming? He didn't have the crystal ball. Hastings had the foresight to understand that convenience and instant access would become primary drivers in consumer behavior. He predicted that the future of entertainment would be digital, where consumers could stream movies and shows without having to visit a store or wait for a DVD to arrive in the mail. And this insight was fueled by the increasing speed of internet connectivity and the early signs of digital disruption, which hinted that streaming could soon become viable for the mass market. So Hastings turned to these market indicators, like the rise of internet usage. And in the late 1990s and early 2000s, we saw a surge in internet adoption among households, with more people connecting online for work, information, and leisure. So we had to make a shift toward demand content. Consumers were starting to demand more convenience, a trend reinforced by the success of cable providers' pay-per-view services, and the early interest in digital downloads of music and other media. And there were technological advancements. There were significant improvements in broadband technology, hinting at a future where video streaming could become a reality, though it was still in its infancy at the time. Why did Hastings believe a pivot was necessary? Well, he recognized that relying solely on the DVD rental model would not be sustainable in the long term. He anticipated that technological changes would eventually make physical rentals obsolete, and he was determined to position Netflix ahead of the curve. Hastings understood that waiting for the market to shift and then react later could be a fatal mistake, especially when he was competing against a powerful incumbent like Blockbuster. He also witnessed the struggles of other industries that failed to adapt to the technological changes that were happening. For instance, the music industry was facing upheaval with the rise of digital downloads and piracy, highlighting the risks of clinging to traditional distribution methods. This awareness drove Hastings to push for a bold shift towards streaming, even though it meant cannibalizing their existing DVD rental business in the short term. And we know the outcome of this adaptive approach. Hastings' decision to invest in streaming technology, even when the market wasn't fully ready, positioned Netflix as a pioneer in on-demand digital entertainment. And by the time streaming became a mainstream, Netflix was already well established, giving it that significant competitive edge over slower movie competitors like Blockbuster, which ended up filing for bankruptcy in 2010. Hastings' adaptive leadership turned Netflix from a DVD rental company into a global leader in streaming, paving the way for further expansion into original content production. So pause and think about what lessons you learned. Well, the key lesson from Hastings' approach is the importance of anticipating marketing trends, embracing change before being forced to, being willing to disrupt your own business model to stay ahead, and being willing to disrupt your own business model to stay ahead. We have to adapt to change, even more so. And leaders can integrate this by regularly analyzing industry trends, holding strategic discussions about potential disruptors, and fostering a culture that's open to pivoting when necessary. So let's look at what Hastings did. One, he anticipated industry shifts. Hastings predicted the rise of digital streaming and made a bold decision to invest heavily in it, even when DVDs were still profitable, because leadership insight tells us that adaptive leaders don't just react. They proactively look ahead and prepare for potential shifts. Two, he embraced that disruption. He allowed streaming to coexist with DVD rentals initially, ensuring that the company could transition smoothly without alienating existing customers, because he still had some that wanted to buy DVDs, right? And then he built, three, a culture of innovation. Netflix Culture Deck, which went viral, highlighted values like freedom and responsibility, empowering employees to act autonomously and innovate. This forward-thinking approach catapulted Netflix from being just a DVD rental service to this leading streaming platform, eventually producing award-winning original content and revolutionizing how people consume media. So let's look at how you can integrate this. Try implementing futurescaping workshops with your team. So in these workshops, ask questions like, where do you see our industry in 5 years? Maybe even 3 years, right? What disruptions might we face? And how can we prepare for them? These sessions not only stimulate strategic thinking, but also prepare your team for change, as it's inevitable. Let me show you another powerful example. Adobe. So for decades, Adobe sold box software, which was a reliable revenue stream for them. But in 2013, CEO Shantanu Nirun made a risky decision to shift to a subscription-based model, launching Adobe Creative Cloud. Why did he do this? Well, Nirun understood that the traditional model was limited and wouldn't sustain long-term growth. The challenge was adaptive. It required rethinking about how Adobe delivered value to its customers. So what did he do with this information? Well, one, he communicated the vision. Narayan made transparency a priority. He communicated with employees, stakeholders, and even customers about why the change was necessary and what to expect. As a leader, you can hold quarterly town halls with your team where you can outline strategic changes and involve your team in that conversation. To look at a balanced risk reward. Narayan kept the legacy product available initially in order to ease that transition, right? Got to bring people along. He knows that he had to gradually move customers to the cloud, but they had to believe in it and its safety and see its beneficial features. So as a leader, when implementing change, keep a bridge strategy in place to help transition teams smoothly. Because we know change is hard for some, right? So what can that gradual transition look like? Well, just build out a plan. Ask them what they need to switch over. Many companies, when introducing a new CRM system, will run two simultaneously until they know that the new system can do what you need it to do. And then three, he invested in customer education. That Adobe focused on educating users about the key benefits of this new subscription model, all to mitigate resistance. They did discuss what some of the pushback might be, and he had prepared answers and plans to communicate intelligently to their customers. And while there were still initial hiccups, Adobe's revenue soared and the subscription model became a massive success, creating consistent income and expanding the user base significantly. So if you're leading a team through a big change, create a change readiness checklist. You need to identify your key stakeholders that you need to include. And then you need to create a communication plan that is flexible, that covers every step that needs to occur. And then develop the educational resources for team members to understand the change. Remembering that people learn differently. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Some will need to hear it, some will need to see it. Take time to digest it and come back with questions. I know sometimes I wanted to go back and think about the pros and cons, and then remembering that this checklist is for them, not you. It's helping them to get to the finish line. Yeah. Let's bring these lessons into your leadership toolkit. Here are questions you can ask yourself and step-by-step techniques you can start applying today. Okay? Ready? 1. Diagnose the nature of the challenge. Before you ever jump into solutions, assess whether a challenge is technical or adaptive. So for an example, if customer satisfaction is dropping, an adaptive challenge might be changing company culture, not just adding more customer service reps. 2, build a safe to fail environment. Because adaptive leadership thrives in an environment where failure is seen as an opportunity to learn. An example of that is Spotify. At Spotify, teams use the fail-safe principle where small, reversible changes are tested before being scaled. This encourages innovation without the fear of large-scale repercussions, right? Test it out in a small market. If you're retail, test it out in a store or a district. If you're a company, maybe test it with a couple of customers. And my leadership for you is to start pilot initiatives where teams can test new ideas on that small scale. 3, regulate distress, right? Adaptive challenges and changes often come with tension. Leaders must regulate this to keep it productive, right? Well, how do I do this? Implement a pulse check meeting to gauge team stress levels and provide support where needed or get help. 4, empower cross-functional teams. This isn't just about you and your team, right? So break down the silos by encouraging collaboration across departments. I'm going to give you an example at Amazon. Amazon often forms temporary cross-functional teams to tackle complex problems because it brings in fresh perspectives and diverse expertise. And my integration tip to you is maybe to create orderly innovation task forces that bring together members from different teams to solve a unique challenge. Learn from each other, leverage each other's differences. It makes it more seamless when you have to bring it forward, when you have to get the buy-in, when it actually rolls out. 5, encourage diverse perspectives, right? Talked a little bit about it. Adaptive leaders seek insights from all levels of their teams, not just the top tier. Look at Toyota. Toyota excels at this through what it's called its Kaizen approach, where workers at all levels contribute ideas for continuous improvement. Well, how can you apply this? Hold monthly insight sessions where every team member can present ideas or feedback. Some will be great, some will be now, some will be pinned for the future. They're all great ideas though, right? They are your customer base. Remember that. So building a fail-forward mindset. Let's talk about that. Adaptive leadership is not just about leading during success. It's about leading through failure and growing from it. Who's better at that than Jeff Bezos? He once said that failure and innovation are inseparable twins. Amazon's Fire Phone was a notable failure. You probably haven't even heard about it. But the lessons learned contribute to the development of the biggest success. You know what it is? Take a guess. It's the Alexa and Echo products. So for you, start a failure chronicle where team members actually document experiments or things that you rolled out that didn't go as planned and the lessons they learned. This is the leadership journey, right? Building your adaptive toolkit. So picture this, and if you can, not if you're driving, but if you can, close your eyes for a moment and visualize this. It's Monday morning, and you're in your office with your cup of coffee. You're reviewing a project report that's less than promising. Your deadlines are slipping. Customer satisfaction is falling. And your team is truly lost at what to do to course correct. They're just throwing spaghetti at the wall. The air is heavy, and you ask yourself, what do we do now? You take a deep breath, and you lean into the mindset of an adaptive leader. And let me take you through the steps that you would take. 1, diagnose the challenge. You know, this isn't a simple technical problem. If it were, you'd have a playbook already. Instead, this is an adaptive challenge, one that requires fresh thinking and a different approach. Remember Satya and Nadella at Microsoft, who faced a stagnant culture when he became CEO. He knew that the old solutions wouldn't work and instead embraced a new growth mindset. And this matters because adaptive challenges demand leaders to discern whether existing tools and experience can solve the issue or if truly a new, fresh approach is needed. And how do you integrate this into your world? Start by asking yourself, is this challenge one that my team has faced before, or does it require new thinking? Because this reflection will set the stage for innovation solutions and prevent you from falling into the trap of applying outdated strategies and doing this same old, same old. Okay, once you've done that, step 2, you'll want to create a safe space for experimentation. So maybe, for example, that afternoon you call a meeting, but instead of outlining your plan, start with a question to your team. What would we try as a team if we knew we couldn't fail? Silence may follow, and that's okay. This is new territory, right? But don't rush it. Repeat the question and emphasize that no idea is too far-fetched. And slowly, the energy in the room will shift. You may see a few eyebrows raise, some tentative smiles, but the ideas will begin to flow. Bring in other teams, bring in the people that are actually forward facing with customers. Go out and talk to them. Go talk to your customers. Because if you recall Reed Hastings at Netflix, he cultivated an environment where even bold, unconventional ideas were welcome. This mindset paved the way for Netflix's groundbreaking pivot to streaming long before it was mainstream. Because that here with Hastings is your proven factual proof that it works. And why does that matter? Because encouraging bold thinking builds trust and signals your team that creativity is valued. Because without this, people may stick to their safe, predictable paths that won't have you moving the needle. It actually may have you falling behind, right? They become complacent and just go through the moves. But instead, we want a team that is constantly challenging the status quo and coming up with new ideas, even if they never come to fruition. This is how to integrate that in your day. So I recommend that you begin meetings by setting the tone for open brainstorming. So say something, we're here to explore every idea, nothing is off the table. We'll test these, we'll test them, we'll learn from them, we'll adapt. This will communicate to your team and maybe other teams that experimentation and learning are part of your process. They're not exceptions. And make sure your boss knows that you're trying. In fact, they may wish to attend to show you that they're in full support. And remember, that authority or expertise support always builds confidence more quickly. Don't be afraid to have them join. Step 3, time to implement feedback loops and real-time learning. So perhaps a week later, you hold your first reflection. Remember, we talked about this already, right? To evaluate progress. And ask your team, what did we try this week and what did we learn? I love asking that question in my own business. Because wins are shared as well as setbacks, and both are celebrated, fostering an environment of honesty and growth. This reminds me of Santanu Narayan's journey at Adobe, where he transitioned the company from box software to a subscription model. His success stemmed from transparent communication and then ongoing feedback, which allowed the team to pivot effectively. And this matters because continuous feedback loops allow teams to learn and adapt more quickly, ensuring that small missteps don't snowball into larger issues or have them freeze. We need to support our teams along the way and check in. Okay, so you may be asking, so how do I integrate step 3? So schedule regular check-ins where teams share progress and lessons learned. And lessons learned is key, as we're starting to rewire how the brain thinks. And from that, more creativity blooms. Frame these meetings with prompts like, what surprised us this week? And what should we try next based on what we learned? Be supportive and open. You don't want judgment to come out here. If someone is struggling, pull them aside separately and ask questions to understand where they may be struggling. Everyone learns at a different pace. And in step 4, that is where we encourage cross-functional collaboration, because we realize that adaptive challenges can't be solved in isolation. So you decide to bring in perspectives from outside your immediate team. Perhaps you invite colleagues from marketing, customer service, IT to your next meeting. Much like Spotify's squads and tribes, they brought diverse expertise together to solve problems faster. And during these meetings, new ideas started bouncing around, like a suggestion from IT about real-time analytics, and maybe a campaign from your marketing team. The room starts to buzz with possibilities because at the end of the day, we all want to succeed. And this matters because diverse input leads to more comprehensive solutions and helps us to break down those silos that can stifle progress. And it may solve for a problem we didn't even think of. Remember, they're the expert in their area of work. So when we create cross-functional task forces for significant challenges, we integrate, ensuring executive support is visible to show that this collaboration is a priority. Okay, step 5. We need to normalize and celebrate failure, okay? So a few weeks later, one of the more promising ideas doesn't deliver as expected. Could happen, but don't panic. Instead of moving on, call a quick meeting and lead with, well, let's talk about what we learned. You need to ensure you're doing your due diligence or ROI on what you tried. And I'll go back to Jeff Bezos at Amazon. He sees failure as a twin of invention. Perhaps you have a failure well. I tried X and learned Y. Next, we'll try Z. But by doing this, you can start to find the trends, because they'll start to appear, and then your team will begin to understand why it didn't work or what to do differently. Perhaps learn something about your business or customer that you didn't know before. You might even notice it as an insight that could actually help your next project. And this matters because normalizing failure reduces fear and fosters that innovation and further creativity. Remember, this is a skill that has to be developed. Because again, we're rewiring our brains, but we can do it. When team members see that failure is a learning tool rather than a career risk, they're more willing to take the kind of chances that lead to breakthroughs. But you want to follow up with them regularly so it's not big, right? So to create this or to integrate it, create a space, whether digital or physical, where lessons for failures are shared and celebrate, and reinforce that these lessons are part of growth. Remembering staying stagnant can result in the risk of business loss, because the reality is stark. Staying stagnant is in an ever-evolving market can lead to obsolescence, ultimately losing your business. There's no better cautionary tale than Blockbuster. It's the dominant force in home entertainment, right? Blockbuster thrived on its successful rental model but failed to adapt to the shift towards digital streaming. And when Reed Hastings approached them with the idea of partnering with Netflix, Blockbuster dismissed it, believing their model was unshakable. And by the time they recognized the potential of streaming, it was too late. Netflix had already revolutionized the industry. And the outcome? Blockbuster declared bankruptcy in 2010, where Netflix soared as a streaming leader. Your lesson for that should be clinging to what has worked in the past without recognizing the need for adaptation is a recipe for decline and disaster. Companies that fail to embrace adaptive leadership risk becoming irrelevant, losing their competitive edge, and eventually closing their doors. So your lesson is relying solely on past success without adapting to new trends is a recipe for decline. The lesson, relying solely on past success without adapting to new trends, is a recipe for decline. Companies that fail to embrace adaptive leadership risk irrelevance, the loss of their competitive edge, and ultimately failure. Another powerful example is Target's failed expansion into Canada. In 2013, the American retail giant entered the Canadian market with ambitious plans, expecting it to replicate its U.S. success. However, Target overlooked key adaptive leadership principles that might have guided a more flexible approach. They underestimated local challenges. Target launched over 100 stores in a short span without properly understanding local logistics, supply chains, issues, or consumer expectations. They failed to adapt their strategy to meet the unique needs of Canadian shoppers who walked in and found empty shelves and higher prices compared to the US counterparts. It was a rigid process. So instead of taking a phased, learn as you go approach, Target adhered to a rigid expansion plan that left little room for real-time adjustments. They didn't take the time to understand the nuances of the market or correct initial missteps. And the result? By 2015, Target had lost billions and withdrew from Canada, closing all its stores. It is a harsh reminder that even a powerhouse brand, doesn't matter who you are, can fail if it doesn't adapt to the realities of new markets and respond to challenges effectively. The lesson? Target's downfall in Canada was due to a lack of flexibility, an unwillingness to pause and recalibrate, and a failure to engage adaptive practices that might have allowed them to pivot and recover. Now let's look at our final step, number 6. Foster a growth mindset. So as you practice adaptive leadership, you'll start to see your team leaning into challenges with more confidence, experimenting without fear, and collaborating with each other and others seamlessly. And this evolution is powerful, but it's crucial to keep nurturing it because growth isn't a one-time achievement. It's a continuous journey. Without consistent reinforcement, teams can slip back into their comfort zones and risk that stagnation again and those missed opportunities. You don't want your organization to be the next blockbuster, clinging to past successes while the world moves forward, or to make the mistakes as Target Canada did, failing to adjust and adapt to new realities. Instead, your goal is to champion a culture where growth and learning are constants, driving resilience and innovation. And that matters because a growth mindset builds a foundation for resilience and continuous improvement, essential traits for any leader and team in today's dynamic, fast-paced, ever-changing environment. That's why I do this podcast for you, to encourage you as a leader and for you to encourage your team to see challenges as opportunities to learn and setbacks as stepping stones to progress. Remember, it isn't difficult to integrate this in your daily schedule. So plan for it. Put it in your calendar. Hold regular growth reflections. Schedule those dedicated times for the team to share lessons learned from recent projects and discuss how they plan to apply those insights. This reinforces the idea that growth is ongoing and learning from experiences is celebrated. And make sure to lead by example. Share personal stories of uncertainty, risk, and growth. And when you as a leader show vulnerability, transparency, and the willingness to learn, it inspires your team to do the same. And make sure you embed growth language in everyday conversation. Use phrases like, "This challenge is an opportunity to learn," And we're here to grow and try new things together, to emphasize that learning is valued over mere success. So again, if you can, close your eyes for a moment, take a breath, and imagine your team has just wrapped a project that faced unexpected challenges. Instead of focusing solely on what went wrong and dreading that meeting you are going to be called out on with your boss, hold a growth reflection meeting. Ask, what did we learn and how can we apply it next time? This keeps the momentum of learning alive and shows that every experience, whether good or bad, has value. And as we close this chapter on adaptive leadership, remember that it's not about knowing all the answers or flawlessly navigating every challenge. It's more than a strategy. It's a culture. It's about fostering an environment where questions lead to exploration and growth, where mistakes are embraced and fuel progress, and where every team member feels invested in the journey. And as you move forward, ask yourself, how can I adapt, lead, and guide my team to embrace change together? Because staying stagnant in today's world means risking everything you've built. Don't be the next blockbuster left in the dust of innovation or target Canada unprepared for the realities of a new landscape, which we're entering. Instead, choose to lead boldly, foster a growth mindset that empowers your team to embrace change, celebrate learning, and stay resilient. Be the leader who adapts, inspires, and guides your team not just to survive, but to thrive in the face of change. And remind your team and yourself that adapting isn't a one-time act, but a lifelong journey. We're here to grow together every step of the way. And when you lead with this mindset, you're building more than a successful team. You're creating a legacy of leadership that propels everyone forward, no matter what challenges come your way. Ask yourself, how will you adapt, lead, and guide your team to not just meet change, but to own it? The answer to that question is the key to a resilient, future-focused, thriving business. So thank you for joining me on today's Balanced Leader. And if this episode inspired you or made you think differently, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to share and like it. And as always, if there's a topic you'd like to hear about, drop me a line. This podcast is here to serve you. I hope today's conversation inspired you to take action. So start by fostering a growth mindset within your team. Schedule your first growth reflection meeting this week and lead with vulnerability by sharing your own stories of risk and learning. Encourage your team to see every challenge as an opportunity to grow. And if you're ready to take your leadership to that next level and create a culture that thrives on adaptability and growth, I invite you to schedule a free 30-minute strategy call with me. No obligation. Together we'll create one actionable step. Together we'll create one actionable step to advance your leadership journey. And don't miss your chance to join the waitlist for my exclusive Leadership Essentials program, a transformative 6-unit training that guides you from leadership foundations to strategic leadership. Join today and start leading with confidence and purpose. And links to book your free call and join my Leadership Essentials program waitlist are in the show notes. Let's keep growing together.